The total budget appropriation for public education in 2024 has been set at nearly $4 billion, by far the largest single item in the state budget. Who will benefit the most from the additional $625 million in spending? That's the topic of this week's in-depth discussion with moderator Reese Wetzel and his special panel of guests.
Thank you, Rich. And today we will be breaking down the education package. And joining us here today to do so is Jennifer Carter, Senior Advisor for the American Federation for Children in Oklahoma, Chris Brewster, Superintendent for Santa Fe South Charter Schools, Dr. Rick Cobb, Superintendent for Mid-Del Public Schools, and Angela Clark Little, a public school parent. Now we're short on time here and we have a lot to get through, so I'm going to go right to Jennifer here. How does the tax credit help private and home schools and the families who choose them?
Thank you for having us on today, Reese. But real quickly, before we get into how the tax credit work, I want to address school choice and what does that really mean. School choice allows parents to choose the best option for their kid, whether it's public school, private school, charter school, homeschool, or virtual school, and removes the financial barriers that prevents families from being able to participate in any one of those options. So we're really excited about the Oklahoma Parental Choice Tax Credit that the legislature and the governor passed this session that allows families to take a tax credit to the school of their choice, private school particularly. It reimburses them for tuition for private school in the amounts between $5,000 and $7,500. And then it provides a homeschool tax credit of $1,000 for families who choose to homeschool to reimburse them for some of their educational materials at home.
All right, moving forward, I want to turn to Rick here and Chris and kind of ask you both about the Red Bud Fund. What does that do for public schools, Rick, and what does it do for charter schools, Chris?
I'll start with just kind of an overview. So every school's valuation, ad valorem collections, they're vastly different, every school district's. So we're the same size roughly as Mustang, but they have a much higher property valuation. And so all of that gets evened out in the funding formula pretty well. But when it comes to our building fund, when it comes to our bonding capacity, there are huge disparities across the state from school district to school district. The Red Bud Fund helps catch up some of the districts that are on the lower end of ad valorem collections so that they have more money in their building fund and for capital improvement projects. And then with charter schools, it's a little different.
Yeah, and I'm a huge advocate for formulas like the Red Bud Fund that smooth the inequities in our state. As Dr. Cobb mentioned, you have districts with extremely low ad valorem tax bases and are unable to provide the same types of things that affluent districts can. And that's simply unfair in Oklahoma to not give kids the same opportunities in school. So I really appreciate the legislature increasing the scope of the Red Bud Fund. I have a little issue with the way it's funded, but I'm glad that it is backstopped and guaranteed so that schools can plan on these funds, and it begins to sort of flatten the inequities that charter schools, lower ad valorem tax districts have to bring us up to a more equitable sort of funding area for facilities.
All right, Angela, I want to move next to you. As a public school parent, what is your take on the tax credit for private and homeschool students and those parents?
I'm just personally glad it was tied to extra funding for public schools and as well as a teacher pay raise. I think that if we're going to, give money one way, we've got to make sure we're giving money the other way as well. And we're in a teacher shortage right now, so that pay raise is going to be very helpful.
Do you think that pay raise makes us competitive with other states that teachers have been leaving the market for?
I think it's getting us there. I think there's a bigger gap to fill than what we can probably do in one session or two. I do think that morale of teachers is down. I don't know if this is necessarily going to change that. They feel underappreciated, undervalued, and I think we're going to have to make a big shift to, in the culture to get teachers to actually stay in Oklahoma.
All right, Jennifer, I want to go back to you here. Are private schools equipped for this influx of students that may be coming here soon?
I think it depends on the school. I think some schools have capacity, they can add students. There are some schools who have waiting lists. But I've talked to a number of school leaders and they've been talking to me about adding capacity. In fact, on Friday, there's a school in Tulsa that just purchased a new building or announced the purchase of a new building so that they can expand their capacity as well. So we'll see some schools making some shifts as they see demand increase and providing more opportunity for kids.
All right, and Rick, I want to turn to you here. We kind of already touched on the teacher pay raise, but as a superintendent of a suburban district here in Oklahoma, one of the metro districts, what do you see coming out of this teacher pay raise? Will it motivate teachers more and get more teachers in the classroom?
I think that it's a good start on pay raises. If you look at per pupil funding state by state, our regional average, the amount of money that's going into the formula is still going to have us last place in the region, but barely. So it's getting us closer to catching up with other states around us in terms of the way it was scaled with different levels of raises for different years of experiences. I think that was good. I think that's something that is going to be well received by our teachers. The fact that the funding goes through the formula, and when it comes through the formula, it also has some room in there for us to give much needed support raises. And I think that's important too, because these are, in many cases, our lowest paid employees. And if you look at the impacts of inflation the last couple of years, it's really hit them the hardest. So just giving us a chance to keep all of our employees kind of at where they were in terms of buying power over the last couple of years is something that's a big deal. Whether it reverses the teacher shortage or not, I can't say. After the last few years, I've given up on trying to predict human behavior.
All right. Well, Chris, I kind of heard you agreeing there. Do you want to add anything on this conversation to the teacher pay raises?
Well, I think we will get what we pay for in our state, and until we invest both in the infrastructure and the supports for schools and require accountability in the districts, we're going to continue to get what we get academically. So I would love to see significantly more funding through the formula. I think making a shift in the poverty weight was a significant change, especially for those of us that work with high needs population. ELL learners are also a very challenging group. We like to see some more support that way, and with our special needs kids, it's a step in the right direction, or maybe several steps. But we're going to continue to need to support this and not expect this to be something we just do once every 10 to 15 years.
And just real quick, what is ELL?
English language learners, so students who come to school with a language other than English as their primary language.
Okay. And Angela, I want to turn to you, kind of changing the topic here. We're talking about school security. There was a recent measure in that bill for $150 million to be allocated to school training and school resources for officers. How do you feel about that? Does it make training, or does it make parents feel more secure about their child being at school?
Yeah, I think any additional money we can give to our districts for infrastructure, for security, anything is going to be helpful since they're running on a very bare bones budget. And of course, most parents are focused on keeping their kids safe. I mean, we want to know that they go to school and they're in a secure place. So absolutely, I think any additional funding like that we can give to districts to help is fantastic.
All right. And Jennifer, here, I want to turn to you more about the parental choice tax credit program. It does have a cap right now at $150 million, but by 2026, it can move up to $250 million. Will that help meet the future need that these private schools or homeschoolings might have?
I think that remains to be seen. As we see the program implemented and what take-up looks like, we'll have a better idea once we approach 2026 whether or not that's going to meet the needs or not.
So Rick, I want to talk to you here. We're talking about urban districts, suburban, rural districts. Did they all get treated equally in this bill, and did they all make sure that they were allocated for specifically?
I would say that the bulk of the funding in this education package going through the formula is a really good thing. And I think sometimes we get too hung up on labels like urban, suburban, and rural. There are some rural districts that are high ad valorem districts. There are some urban districts that are high ad valorem districts. And then there are some of each that are low ad valorem districts. And so being a wealthy district doesn't mean that you have wealthy students necessarily. It just means that you have a really significant tax base or taxable valuation in your community. I think that with the Redbud funding, the money going through the formula, I think that there's a lot of balance in the package that was put together, and the drafts that came out in earlier versions of the legislation, I think were less equitable, and they were able to smooth some of those out.
Jennifer, how do you feel about it from the private school perspective?
Well, I don't think about it in terms of schools. I think about it in terms of kids. Are we helping meet the needs of every kid? Every kid has individual needs. Their interests are individualized, and providing parents the option to make sure that they meet their children's needs, and those parents who know better than anybody what those children's needs are, or what their children's needs are, it's exciting. It's exciting that the legislature understood and undertook a major funding package that makes sure that they meet the needs of every child in our state.
All right. And Chris, let's talk about just overall, what is this going to do for your district, Santa Fe South? How is this going to help improve?
Well, again, like a traditional district, more funds pushed to the local level where we can just really see where those need to go and place those, with local decision making being the sort of focal point, I think is always a good thing. So whether you're an urban district, rural district, or however you define yourself, to get those funds in the hands of the board members and the leaders in those schools is the most important thing. So for us, we're able to target those in our elementary schools, really helping kids to acquire high levels of reading and math skills. So we'll be investing more in paraprofessionals and in reading specialists. It really helps us to move forward with our academic goals that we have right now. As a school of choice, we're expanding to open 3 new schools next year in the South Side. And it gives us the opportunity to kind of ramp up with just a little bit more financial latitude than we've had in the past to open doors on schools. So it's very expensive to open schools, and this helps get us a little breathing room as we expand.
And Angela, we're talking about literacy a lot here in Oklahoma, improving reading scores for children. Seeing what was put into this bill, does that reassure you as a parent that there's going to be a focus on literacy training here?
Yeah, I think there already is a focus on literacy training at the local level of the district. I feel like, that is, I'm glad it's there, but I don't feel like it's something that's not being done right now, so.
Okay, and Rick, do you have anything you would like to say to that?
Yeah, we've been focused on early literacy for years. I think that this is just an extra push. I mean, in the overall scope of this package, it's a very small amount of money over 3 years to give us maybe some extra supports at the state level, and I don't know what that'll look like. I know that during the past 2 administrations at the State Department of Ed, this has been a focus as well, and it's carried through. We have teachers that are going through letters training this week, which has been a push of the last 2 superintendents. So I think that it's not a new emphasis, but maybe it's just an extra surge in that direction.
All right, and Jennifer, so what should a parent be considering now that this is an option for tax credits for private schools and homeschools? What's some of the things that they should weigh maybe when making a decision on where to send their child to school?
Well, I think the first thing is what is it that your child needs? What is it that your child isn't either not getting, or what is something that you want for your child to have? And then go tour schools, like get in there and ask questions of the leadership, of the teachers, visit a classroom or several, and decide whether or not that school's going to meet your child's needs.
All right, and we talk about making an important choice for the child. How important is it to get the child's perspective on, where they want to go?
When you have buy-in, I think everyone sitting around the table would agree that when you have buy-in from the family and from the child, learning just explodes because they're excited to be where they are. And so when a parent and a child chooses Santa Fe South, they're excited to be there and they get to work, right? Because they chose to be there. And I think that creating that opportunity for families provides that additional buy-in from the family that can launch learning as well.
And Chris, have you been hearing from more families as this has started to roll out? Are you hearing from families that are maybe interested or are already there and really excited?
Yeah, we've had about 1,000 on the waiting list for the past few years, and so this additional funding is going to enable us to hopefully bring in most of those families. They're very excited. I got a phone call from a parent not too long ago, about 10 minutes after our lottery, and they were incredibly excited that their 4-year-old had been selected, and they said, he is so ready for school, he is able to read, he is excited. And I know this to be true because it was my wife calling me that our 4-year-old had been accepted into one of our preschool programs. So as a parent, I was thrilled that we made it through the lottery. And I know other parents feel the same way.
Yeah, and Angela, I'm going to turn here to you last. We're running short on time here. As a parent, what else needs to be addressed in the classroom, if anything?
I think there are a lot of issues right now that need to be addressed that we're not addressing. I mean, we've got a shortage of support staff. We have a bus driver shortage. There are things that need to be tackled that are getting ignored right now because we're in this culture war. I feel like if we could get back to focusing on the actual issues in school and not the divisiveness, that things could get extremely better.
All right. Thank you, and I would like to thank everyone. Jennifer Carter, Senior Advisor for American Federation for Children in Oklahoma, Chris Brewster, Superintendent for Santa Fe South Charter Schools, Dr. Rick Cobb, Superintendent for Mid-Del Public Schools, and Angela Clark Little, Public School Parent. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.